Welcome to this week's installment, Today and Tomorrow in Scottsdale with Don Henniger. I'm Don. With me, as always, is my podcast partner and man with an appetite for Scottsdale, Kevin Maxwell.
I do have a big appetite for Scottsdale.
Well, that's because you love Scottsdale so much.
Not as much as you.
Well, you know, since we both love Scottsdale so much, we decided this week just you and I are going to talk.
Just have a chat.
Let's have a chat. There's some things going on. You know, we always have a guest, but we figured, well, once in a while, wouldn't it be nice if just Kevin and Don could have a moment together over a podcast just to talk about what's happening?
You know, our content builds up, right? Over a couple of weeks, we talk about, we hit hitting things, little things that we go on, but eventually there's enough content where we need to just like clear the guest out and clear our content out and just get stuff on the table.
We've had amazing guests. We've done 80 podcasts. This is actually number 81.
Mm-hmm.
We've not had a repeat guest in all of those podcasts. We've had everybody around the city on board. I mean, there's still more to get. It's just been an amazing run, and just so happy that people have been so responsive to being invited to be on this podcast. Nobody's ever said no.
Nope, nobody's ever said no, and people reaching out to us. They want to be on my podcast. They're interested in the podcast, and people telling me I listen to the podcast on a regular basis. It's a source of knowledge for me, so that's great hearing that kind of stuff out in the community.
We've always had one theme, and that was to tell good stories about Scottsdale.
Positive stories.
Positive stories about Scottsdale, because there's no lack of them, and there's enough negativity out there that other people can deal with that.
Yeah. We have a guest coming up who asked me, what's the podcast about? What do you guys do? And I told her the same thing. These are our rules. You got to be somebody who's making a difference in the community.
Yep. Right.
Doesn't just have to be in a certain political field or public safety or anything like that. As long as they're making a difference in the community and they're doing it in a positive way.
That's all we ask, just to shine a light on Scottsdale and recognize this place for what it is. It's probably the best city in Arizona.
You think it makes it easier for us to do the show doing that way, having those rules, or harder?
I think if we, we're being true to ourselves.
That's true.
So it's authentic and sincere. And I think that's, if we try to fake it or try to sensationalize it or try to bring folks in and want to bitch and complain about what's happening in the city, then when we know the vast majority of people living here love living here.
That's right.
Then we don't really touch the heartbeat of what's happening here,
And we often talk about how we believe that most people believe the way we do, that they love the city and we move the city forward positively. But they don't have enough of a voice, right? It's the people who are making the most noise who are actually in the minority, but they're making the most noise. So this is hopefully balancing that out.
And that's not to say the city's perfect, because no place is. And, we're happy, and we do talk about things that we hope will improve. And maybe we'll talk about a few of them today. That's an ongoing deal. But when you do it coming from a position of optimism, from a position of positivity, you can take a look at the imperfections and figure out what to do about them.
Right. Yeah.
So that's another great aspect of what we try to put together. Let's bring people in who want to make our city better than it already is. And let's look for people who have ideas on how to do that.
Yeah.
Speaking of people who love living in Scottsdale, the latest city survey, they do one every year or so, came back with some pretty remarkable results about folks living here. And sometimes if you go to a normal city council meeting, you might not see this sentiment in the Kiva floor. But the fact is, people love living here.
You think?
They give it wonderful ratings. It's crazy, isn't it?
We live in paradise.
It's the number of issues that are probably the most important things in the way you would gauge a city got well over 90% of favorable response from city residents. Things like Scottsdale is a place to live, Scottsdale is a place to visit, the overall quality of life in Scottsdale, neighborhood safety. When's the last time you felt you were in trouble walking around your neighborhood at night?
I never have. Not the last time. I never have.
Well, there you go. That's probably what that speaks to. Likely to recommend other folks living in Scottsdale. 94% of the people say that. Quality of utility services, the fire services, health and wellness, library services. We live in a pretty special place.
We sure do. And sometimes we get a little too complacent maybe and kind of take it for granted where we live and how we enjoy our lives. I saw something on the news the other day, two things that caught me on the news the other day about Scottsdale. One, I don't know if you heard about this. There was a short-term rental near my home in Old Town where I guess a cleaning crew had found some drugs and some firearms. Did you see that?
I did not see that.
So just a couple of days ago, it was a short-term rental, and the cleaning crew he was working on behalf of the owner went in to clean. I'm not sure if the people had vacated or what, but while they were cleaning, they found a stash of a lot of drugs.
Really?
And a lot of firearms.
Wow.
And they did the right thing. They called the police, and the police came and investigated, and they were interviewing the neighbors, and they were saying, what kind of city is this? That I'm like, I don't understand. It's like it's a one-time deal.
Right.
If they're a short-term rental, who knows who was there? Probably somebody somebody doing something they shouldn't have done, but the cleaning crew did the right thing. It doesn't mean our city's a bad place.
Of course not.
Right? Just because one thing, I mean, what do you expect? That they did everything, everybody did what they were supposed to do.
And that's the way it's supposed to work.
Yeah.
You know,
so
never going to be a perfect place, right? And, you know, people can come here. There's no gates around Scottsdale. People can come in and do whatever they want.
Right.
Within relative means and risk of being caught if they're doing something bad.
The point is that, just like our guest last week, Sergeant Detective Andrew Parrott, who was talking about, there are human trafficking going on in our city.
Sure.
Right. But luckily we have people like them to help subside it, helps us stop it, right, to make it more safe. And the same thing with those people. Yeah, people are going to have drugs in Scottsdale, but guess what? The police are going to take care of it when they see it.
You know, Andrew said something really interesting last week when he was talking about the arrests they make for human trafficking and how Scottsdale will post as making lots of arrests. But that's a good thing, because what that's telling you is that they're active and they're searching for bad actors who are doing this stuff. Whereas a lot of other communities may not be as progressive in their policing of that.
Right.
Their numbers might look smaller, but their crimes are probably actually greater.
I wonder if that's a deterrent. It probably is. I mean, if you were going to participate in that kind of activity, do you think that you would look someplace other than Scottsdale to do it? I bet you I would.
Well, I would too. But the problem with Scottsdale is everybody wants to come here. It's the destination place, man. That's the problem.
That's true.
You know, you said something really interesting. I think if there's one of the weaknesses I've always talked about with Scottsdale is that very word you used, and that's complacency. You know, people, it's such a great place to live. People sort of take it for granted. They're not maybe necessarily motivated to get active in things. We're always calling on folks to attend city council meetings, to step up and get their names in line for nominations to boards and commissions and really be an active part of their community. I wish more people in Scottsdale would do that. It keeps the place special, you know?
It does. It does. I will say one thing that is a little, I even hate to even bring it up because it's such a petty thing, but it's March in Scottsdale, and you know what that means? It's busy.
Yeah, true.
Right. I mean, busy. Monday afternoon, I had some friends that were in town over the weekend, and I didn't get a chance to see them. They were from out of town. They said, "Hey, we're leaving on Monday. Stop by. We're having lunch in Old Town. You know, come by and say hello." I said, "You know, I wasn't going to. I was busy." And I thought, you know what? Let me go pop in and say hello.
Yeah.
And because I live close, so I drove by and drove around and around and around looking for a parking spot. And there were people in the crosswalk. It was busy. It was a congestion. This was Monday afternoon at 12:30 in the afternoon, and it was packed.
That's nice, though, isn't it?
It is nice, but it's also like I just want to go to someplace I always go to and get into easily. So I'm going to tolerate it, and it's okay. But you know, I was thinking about something. You know how that old phrase that goes, "A broken clock is right twice a day."
Yep.
Right. Yep. I was thinking, some of our friends who are bringing up parking issues, they're right. 3 weeks a year.
Exactly. I was just thinking about the same thing. I was thinking about whether I should even bring up the whole issue of parking, because there's a few people, particularly in Old Town, who make that part of every meeting they go to.
Yeah. And
generally, you're right. Except for 3 or 4 weeks out of the year, there's not a parking problem at all down here. Right now, yes. Today, yes.
Yeah.
And
I'll take
next
it.
2 weeks. Yeah, I think it's great. I mean, I had to park 4 blocks from here, the studio today in Old Town. You know what? So what?
Yeah.
Soon I did. I got out of my car. I walked a couple of blocks with a bunch of other tourists, looked at a couple of art galleries along the way, and had a good time walking over here.
There you go. Get a little exercise.
It's okay.
Yeah, I did on Monday. I drove around and around, looked at my watch, had to get back to work, and just said, you know, I texted him and said, hope you guys had a good time in Scottsdale. See you next time you're here.
You know, it's funny when you have all these visitors here. It's like when somebody comes to visit, your family comes to visit, you know, for a week, and first couple of days are great. Then day 5 and 6 is like, okay. And day 7 they leave, like, thank God.
I know, right?
You know?
Yeah. Yeah. But anyway, that's my only gripe with Scottsdale. It is a little tough to maybe park sometimes in March, just a little bit.
And the streets are a little crowded too.
A little bit.
But, you know, I'll put up with that because we know what that means. And, you know, I just feel most of those people who are clogging the streets up and parking the spots down here don't live here.
Nope.
So we're the lucky ones. They're not.
Absolutely.
So it's kind of cool. Hey, let's talk about this thing that's happening over at Scottsdale Unified School District. The governing board there has decided to join a lawsuit taking on social media platforms for their impact and their negativity to the students' mental health. That's a really interesting thing that's happening over there.
Okay, here we go.
Yeah, I know you like this one.
Let's get going.
Yep,
Now, first of all, you said something that's I got to ask you about for clarification. They joined the lawsuit, or were they thinking about joining the lawsuit?
They actually agreed to hire an attorney to represent them in the lawsuit.
Okay, so you got some updated information because I knew they were considering it. When did that happen? Like the last couple of days?
I think it was the last governing board meeting. So whenever that was, just a couple of days ago. Yeah.
The one on Tuesday, last night. Was it last night?
Am I? No, well,
We record on Wednesdays, by the way. Okay.
I read it in the paper today. I don't know what day they did this though. Let me see if I take a look at the story and see if they say when. But anyway, they agreed to hire an attorney.
Oh, see, because here we go. Let me go a little bit on this one. Here we go.
Go for it.
All right, so I watched that. I watched that the city council. I watched the board meeting a couple weeks ago when the attorney made a presentation to try to convince the district to go on board, right? And then it was just a presentation. He outlined the facts. He outlined the benefits. He outlined the pressures and things like that. And did a good job in the presentation. And then he just his presentation ended, and then that was it. And then I started to write an article, which I stopped because I reached out to a couple board members, and I kind of got the impression that it was just a presentation from an attorney. There was no serious, but looks like I need to be updated a little bit.
Well, it's okay. Let's update and talk about what's going on with that, because I think the whole thing's kind of fascinating.
Okay.
Taking on a lawsuit. There's two other school districts that are involved, Mesa
and Seattle.
Yeah. And when the attorney presented to the governing board, they came back and they voted 4-0. So I don't know where the fifth vote was, but they voted 4-0 to approve hiring the attorney.
Libby wasn't there last week.
Maybe that's what it was then. Okay.
So really?
Yep.
So he did. Okay. All right. Now I'm. Okay. So here's the deal. I strongly am against this, and let me tell you why. I'm just going to tell you why. First of all, okay. And before I do, let me level set and tell you that I believe that social media can harm teenagers. I believe it's addictive, and I believe that it can harm them in adverse ways. Mm-hmm. Okay. Having said that, does Scottsdale Unified School District, do we need to take the point on a nationwide effort to eliminate this and help make the lives of teenagers better through social media? We're a little teeny school district here in Arizona. We don't need to be on point on this. There's a lot of people who can do this. First of all, if even taking litigation out, and there's lots of remedies we can have. One, we could join a lot of these community groups that are helping to put pressure on the social media companies to make changes, and that's already going on. There's actually been a lot of progress on that. Or you can litigate. You can invoke Congress to help out, right? Okay. And put political pressure on them to do the things they need to do through legislation, right? That's another option they could have chosen, right? So if we want to be in the front of this, those are two things we could have done that wouldn't cost any money. The third option is seeking litigation. This is going to have a very, very big uphill slope on this. And I know that he said that there's not going to be any cost to the district because they'll only get paid on any future earnings that are come out of this. I guess that's not the right word, but you know what I mean?
Yeah. Fines or whatever.
So I'm just thinking that we do not need to be involved in this. Let's keep our focus on the students. We have a lot of things that are challenging our district. We do not need this headache. I am super disappointed if they voted 4-0 to hire an attorney.
They did. And so, but let's talk about the issue for a second.
All right, let's talk about the issue.
Because I'm more, this it's bigger than just the school districts. It's about what social
It's a nationwide problem.
Absolutely. It's a cultural problem. It's a global problem, actually.
Yeah, that's true.
It's all global.
Yeah.
And how do you control this stuff?
Well, I mean, you put some restrictions on them. Their whole business model is what's driving this, right? I mean, they get, this whole business model of the most clicks, the most likes, the most engagement. The more they're looking for engagement, right? The social media platforms, the more engagement they get, but it kind of drives behavior that's bad. There's all kinds of documentation out there and stats on this. So I'm not saying it's not a problem. It absolutely is a problem. And I agree with it. I just don't think that let's let somebody else take the point on this. Whoever's going to have a successful outcome on this, whether it be us or Mesa or Seattle or California school district, whoever it is, if somebody's actually able to move the needle on this and get some remedies in here that actually help teenagers, that's great. We'll all benefit. But right now, if Scottsdale's taking the lead on this, then some school district in Omaha, Nebraska, their kids are going to benefit if we have a successful outcome.
That's true.
Right?
That's true.
And I just don't think we let somebody else do it.
I would agree. There's other fights worth fighting in Scottsdale. We've got one with the superintendent right now going on.
That's true.
To say the least.
Let's support our superintendent. Let's put our efforts behind that.
But I'm still fascinated by the whole idea, whether it's Scottsdale or Mesa or Seattle or whoever, is how do you take on the 3 or 4 major social media platforms out there: Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, YouTube, Snapchat, whatever, Snapchat, Snapshot,
yeah,
Snapchat.
That's a different one.
That's coming on next. But it's stats on algorithms, corporate decisions, and the business strategies they all go through. And the idea is to get kids to spend more time on social media so they can increase their traffic and sell more ads.
I read a lot, Don. Let me tell you, I read a lot about the intersection between technology and legal field. I mean, a lot. And I'm just telling you that there is a strategy to go about combating this. We do not need to be a part of it. Let somebody else do that. This is going to be a total distraction, and they say there's not going to be any money. Wait till they get their first bill. They're going to. This attorney was just trying to get people. He wants to be as many people as he can to be plaintiffs in this to help, make it a better case. But I don't know. This guy was a slick talking guy, and he did a great job. He presented the facts as they were, and he understands what the issues are.
Right.
So I'm not saying that. I mean, he had a really good grasp of what the issues are and how harmful it could be. And I'm not denying that at all. I'm just saying that we personally do not need to be involved in this.
Gotcha. Here's the thing. Somebody's probably going to need to do something with this. And it's going to be one of the most complicated issues we face in our future as it relates to freedom of information, freedom for free speech and all of that. And it's kind of interesting because they talk about this as it relates to students and kids, and they compared it in some of the things I've been reading about on the same effect that cable news networks have on adults.
It's the exact same thing.
You go to your echo chambers, you're only related to people who have one issue in mind, one viewpoint on issues, and you become isolated, and you just don't get a full view of the world.
You sure don't. To your point, I was listening last night in the car. I was going somewhere, and I thought, I like to listen to different stuff. Let me see what the other people are saying over here. I heard a news talk host talk about how we are giving so much resources to Ukraine that they're leaving the United States military vulnerable.
Yeah.
And we're less safe now. We don't have any guns. We don't have any ammunition to protect ourselves against an invasion. And I'm like, are you kidding me? You think our military is so stupid that they would give away so many resources and not leaving enough to protect ourselves? There is no way that a professional military person with all of his experience would ever compromise our safety and ever put us in that situation. And those people who are talking about that, they know that.
Yeah.
They know for a fact that what I'm saying is correct, but it doesn't get clicks, it doesn't drive ratings, and they are presenting it from a certain point of view to grow their audience. And it's disruptive, and it's everything.
It goes back to the whole situation that Fox News is facing right now.
Yeah.
And knowingly reporting or commenting on things they know to be factually incorrect and false. It's irresponsible.
It's absolutely irresponsible.
No
I didn't mean to
question.
get off track here and talking about
You're good. No.
conservative talk radio, but you're absolutely right, Don. It's social media is bad. I mean, for teenagers, it's bad for a lot of people, and there's lots of things you can do, but they all are very complicated. They're very technical, and I just don't think our little school board needs to be involved in it.
It's hard to disagree with that. Let's see what happens as time goes down.
But do you disagree with me? Or
I'm split on that. I really am. I don't know. I guess I would agree mostly with you because I don't know what advantage it has for Scottsdale to be involved in this.
Yeah, I was going to reach out to some of the board members and ask them what they were thinking of this, but then for some reason I got the impression, and maybe it's my own, I don't know where I got it from, but I got the impression they weren't going to take it seriously. It was just, all it was a presentation. Don't worry about it. And here they go, and they voted on it, and I didn't make my voice heard.
Well, we still can. Maybe we'll have. Maybe
I'm doing it right now.
Maybe we'll have somebody on. We can talk about it.
Maybe we will.
We've had the governing board on here before. Maybe it's time to bring maybe a new governing board guest on. We've had 2 on so far. Maybe it's time for another one.
I would love that.
Yeah.
We can never talk about this enough.
Let's do that for sure.
All right.
Yeah.
I'm off my soapbox. Thanks for listening to me.
Good soapbox. That's what we're doing. This is the podcast soapbox.
Yep.
All about Scottsdale. Let's talk about water.
Let's talk about water.
And let's not talk about Rio Verde right now, although it's kind of related to it, because there's, and it's hard for me to point a finger of blame into who to blame for this whole Rio Verde deal. It could be Scottsdale, it could be Rio Verde, it could be Maricopa Pagani. And you know what? Point a finger at all three and say, can we just come together and get an agreement and make this thing happen? But I was interested in that when I was reading a Scottsdale progress story that talked about how water is not a problem in Scottsdale because of the good work that our water department has been doing for decades to make it that way. And the impression, particularly the national impression, because this Rio Verde stuff was national news, gave you the impression that Scottsdale was running out of water, and it's exactly the opposite.
Well, there's a lot of communities in Arizona that are running out of water. Scottsdale's not one of them.
Right.
Right. And I know the farming communities that are on the borders, on the outskirts of the state and the rural communities, that they're having a real issue.
They are.
But that's not Scottsdale.
No. Yeah, and water, and that's not to say water is not a problem in Scottsdale.
Yeah.
Water's a problem in all of the Southwest.
Right.
But it's not like Scottsdale is running out of water.
No.
It's not.
No.
In fact, according to the Progress story, they're banking a ton of water. They bank a ton of water every year.
Throw some numbers at me, Don.
Well, there's some really cool numbers. So, for example, it said near the end of 2022, the water director informed this council the city recharges about 10,000 acre feet of CAP water every year. We also get water from the Salt River system as well. In fact, they were looking at what the water needs in Rio Verde were, according to the story, and they said they need 126 acre feet of water for up to 3 years. But the county rejected that plan, and it hinged on Scottsdale finding 600 acre feet of water. But here's the thing: the story said, if it's true, 126 acre feet of water is approximately 0.01% of what Scottsdale typically banks per year.
No kidding.
In other words, about as much water, 126 feet, or about as much water as the city puts aside every 5 days.
Wow. That's a lot of water.
It's a lot of water.
And we've been in drought for what, 15, 20 years maybe?
Yeah,
I don't know, something like that.
2 decades, yeah.
Isn't it interesting how I know we're not going to get out of the drought in 1 year, but this has been, that numbers you're just seeing are going to increase because we've had an extremely wet winter, right?
Yep.
Great snowpack. The Salt River I saw is running right now because all the rain. We had a lot of rain this year. It's been great, and a lot of snowpack.
Salt River and Verde Valley watersheds are going to be really good this year.
Yep.
It's still not clear exactly what's going to be happening in the Colorado.
That's true.
We're not sure what's happening there. We get a lot of, obviously all of Arizona gets a lot of water from the
but don't they get water intake from Colorado and Utah, right?
Yeah, we do.
Those dump into Colorado, and they're having, again, record snows.
Well, we'll see what happens. But we know what's happening in Arizona. We're going to have a really good watershed. It's still yet to be determined, and there's still it's not going to it's going to be a decent year for sure. But whether that's going to suddenly make a big impact or not. But I mean, to your point, the river system and the Verde and Salt Rivers are full now.
Right.
And so that's why they're releasing water, because the reservoirs are all full, which is really a good thing to see.
Absolutely. We should Lake Mead to get some water.
We need some water up there for sure. Scottsdale pumps billions of gallons annually into underground tanks and other storage sites.
That's fascinating to me.
Isn't that cool?
Yeah, and they're natural aquifers too, right? They're not like infrastructure down there you built 50 years ago. They're pumping the big tanks down. There was some of that. I know they have some tanks, but most of it's naturally occurring aquifers.
This goes back to the point that Scottsdale is a well-run city.
It is a well-run city.
It's taking care of its water needs, and it's banking water needs, and it's for the future, and doing the right thing that way. That's why the whole Rio Verde dispute with the city and the county just is so sad, because there's enough water to make it work the right way. If we could take the politics and the egos and the grudges out against it, we might be able to find a solution.
Yeah. Have you ever called the Scottsdale call center?
Never have.
Never have? You ever called the city number to get services at all? Anything? You go to a call center generally if it's during business hours.
Sure.
And they answer the phone within a couple of rings, and then they route you to the correct department you need, which I think is great for customer service, right?
Yeah, right.
I don't think many other cities do that. Have a live person answer the phone or route your phone call to where you need to go.
Yeah, probably not.
It's just another reason why we have a really well-run city.
Another sign of why life is good here for sure.
Mm-hmm.
What else we want to talk about, Kevin? We've had a pretty good chat today. We're going to solve some problems here.
Look at our time, Don.
I know, man. We're at 30 minutes again.
I know it, right? I wanted to ask you if you, again, a little bit off topic, but do you have your March Madness pool done yet?
I'm not doing one this year.
How come?
No, because Penn State got in.
I was just saying, because your boys are in, so what's going on?
Because I'm going to jinx it if I do something.
Oh, so you want them to go a long way.
I do. I don't think they can, but I would like to see that happen. I usually can do the March Madness poll because Penn State's hardly ever in it.
Yeah.
But now that they made it in, they got a decent team this year. Whether they can win 2 or 3 games remains to be seen. But who are you taking to the Final Four?
I filled my bracket out today, and I think I'm going to change it. But who did I have? I had UCLA, Duke, Alabama, which I'm going to change, I think. Anyway, I want to share something with you. This is kind of my little analytics segment here, if you will. You know what the odds of having a perfect, I don't think it's ever been done, a perfect NCAA bracket all the way through.
I've heard about that. There's actually some big money to be won if you can do this.
Yeah,
Millions of dollars, right? Yeah.
Yeah, and nobody's ever done it. It's 1 in 9 quintillion.
You could win the Powerball with the better odds, right?
Well, look at you, Don. Speaking of the Powerball, I guess the odds of winning the Powerball are 1 in 303 million.
Okay.
Getting a royal flush in poker is 1 in 650,000.
Really?
Yeah. So you're way more likely to get win the Mega Millions or have a royal flush in poker than you are of picking a perfect NCAA bracket.
I've had royal flushes in video poker.
Have you? Well,
yeah, a couple. Yeah, one or two. It defies those odds. I wonder if that holds true with video poker too.
Okay, so you're not going to fill out a bracket this year because you're rooting for Penn State and you want. Okay, that's good.
Yeah.
That makes sense.
I'd like to see Penn State. I'd like to see Arizona make a run.
So that's why I was watching a YouTube video of I forget his name now. Rick Barry. Yeah. Remember Rick Barry?
I sure do.
I like him as an analyst, and he was giving me his Final Four picks, and he picked Arizona.
Did he?
And he's talking about the two big men running the floor, and he's talking about the guard they have to shoot if he can score, which he thinks he will be able to. He's got Arizona, who's a number 2 seed, I believe, aren't they?
They're number 2. Yeah. The cool thing about this tournament, there's no like exceptionally great team. There's just a whole bunch of good ones.
Yeah.
And that might make for a pretty lively tournament.
Yeah. So, it'll be good.
Yeah, well, good luck on your bracket.
All right, thanks.
You can get the 1 in trillion, mega trillions deal, 9 trillion deal. Yeah, you'll be good to go, huh?
Yeah.
If you do that, will you win some money somewhere?
Well, you got to bet first. I got a $20. I'm in a $20 pool right now that pays $700 to the winners. That's about all I got.
Well, I'll keep my fingers crossed. If you win, you can go buy me a beer.
All right, buddy.
All right,
that's
man. Hey, great conversation.
Yeah. Anything else we need to get out?
Good, man.
We cleaned it up. We cleaned our content up.
Cleaned it up. Yeah,
our content closet is empty.
We got some things off our chest.
We did. Did you think?
Yes, that's possible. We're gonna have to follow up on some of the stuff.
We talked about parking, water, school districts, everything else.
Egos.
We have
a couple of egos. Maybe we'll talk about egos next week.
Yeah,
we'll see.
We have some good guests coming up. I'm super excited about
the
next couple of guests.
We've the cupboard is full when it comes to guests, so we'll keep them coming. All right, great conversation. So much going on in Scottsdale. If any of you, our listeners, have ideas for anybody you'd like to see as our guests on our show, let us know. DonH@Scottsdale.com is an easy email to remember. And thanks for listening today. We look forward to being back with you again for our next edition of Today and Tomorrow in Scottsdale.